Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to the third episode of the Growth Mindset podcast series by Islamic Society of Markham. So again, I'm your host Arslan Ahmed, and with me we have a special guest from healthcare industry today, Asad Ali. So he's the co-founder of North Simcoe Physiotherapy, and so in today's podcast will be focusing on resume building. So with this, I would like to have Asad introduce himself, please.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Asad Ali. I am currently a registered physiotherapist. I work in a hospital in Ontario, and I also have like a private clinic in Ontario as well. And I'm also involved with the Islamic Society of Clarington. I'm the president over there. So I have like some experience working in the community and also working with students in different organizations as well. And I'm hoping that some of my thoughts can help some of your viewers in terms of building their resume and kind of aligning it towards healthcare if that's a field that they're interested in.
Great. So since this podcast is primarily geared towards students and early professionals in the universities, so I'd like to have first your thoughts on your career path. Like from where did you start and how did you end up here where you are right now?
Yep, so for my background is in biology and health science, and I went into medicine. I was trying to get into medicine or a healthcare related field from high school. I was looking at trying to get into some field related to medicine. At that time, I didn't know a lot about physiotherapy itself as well, but I was also working in the Canadian Armed Forces. I was a reservist working in the medical battalion. And I got some chance working with like people who were injured and working on rehabilitation and trying to get people back, from injuries and stuff. And that really got me more towards, I think, like working with like individuals who have like injuries and looking at resolving those injuries and working with individuals on improving their physical functioning. And that kind of, led me more towards a physiotherapy related healthcare. And as we know, physiotherapy right now, and a lot of the professions are postgraduate programs, and they usually require a health degree to apply to the program, such as medicine, occupational therapy, speech therapy. A lot of the allied health and healthcare require the degree to apply to the program, and even nursing for some people if they're going into nursing from a college standpoint, from a RN standpoint, some of those programs require a degree to get in. So that's what got me involved in healthcare, my background in health sciences, and partly my experience with the Canadian military.
That's very interesting. Actually, you have been in the military. So what were your challenges or learning opportunities that you would like to share? Any highlights during your career that primarily brought you into private practice from the military?
Right. I think the military, it was a new experience, as you know. Not I think for the unit that I was in Hamilton at the time, and they don't have a lot of experience working with, I think, minorities. And like in the unit, I was maybe the first medics that was a minority. So just working in that field and having the cultural background, as we know, like the Canadian military, like they've been around a long time. They don't have a lot of experience with minorities, and so just getting them involved with what the culture was, what our beliefs are, and also being like a Muslim in the military, not being able to eat certain foods and doing your prayers on a certain time, and kind of organizing kind of your activities kind of around that, right? Because in the military, it's 24 hours. You're in a field, you're doing some exercises. They have no concept of doing 5 daily prayers, or going and washing up to do your wudu, or restricting your diet to halal foods and stuff like that. So like my unit itself was very proactive, very supportive right from the time that I joined, in supporting my religion and supporting my culture and supporting my religious beliefs. And since then, I think it's changed a lot. This was 20 years ago, and I did the military while I was in university, 7 years. So it has changed a lot. There's been a lot of integration now with different cultures and stuff like that. But back then, I think it was really difficult because I think I was like the first minority that a lot of those members had even worked with.
Awesome. So you got a diverse set of experiences, definitely. So Coming to the topic of resume building, what do you think? Like, how important it is for students who are in high school? We touched briefly about your high school as well. So, how important it is for them or university students who are aiming to do internships to build a strong resume, especially when they're starting their career?
Yeah, I think it's really strong. And I think it depends on like the career you're choosing and stuff as well. But pretty much most healthcare professions right now, when you apply to the program, it's usually a 2 or 3 step process, whether it's from high school directly into the university program or from the university program into like a postgraduate program like I did with physiotherapy. Like certainly having the right marks and the right grades, it's very important as part of the application, but that usually kind of gets you kind of on a level playing field with the other applicants. And then from there, like with McMaster at that time, and I think it's still heavily based, a lot of universities that are going towards that, is getting a well-rounded candidate. So somebody who not only meets the criteria from the grade standpoint, but also somebody who has kind of the extracurricular and like life experiences that they feel that would bring that candidate, as a highlight towards some other candidates who are applying for the same position. So for most of the program for McMaster, I think the application at that time, it was probably based on marks. 1/3 of the application was based on the marks. The 1/3 of the application was based on an essay where you wrote, your life experiences, how they're preparing you for the field that you're going into. And the other third was based on an interview. And again, with the interview, it's based on your resume and your experiences and how they relate to the job or the career that you're choosing, right? So I think having that volunteer experience or work experience in your resume, whether you're applying to be a candidate or trying to go into the profession, is really important, because I think a lot of the universities are lining themselves up with that emphasis on getting a well-rounded candidate, somebody who just does not have just the marks themselves, but also have some life experiences that they feel would make that candidate stand out above the other applicants. And I think in high school, that's the perfect time to do it right now, like high school or university, because it gives you the opportunity to really kind of build on kind of maybe the sectors that you're involved in. Like for me, it was physiotherapy. So right out of high school, I applied for, in the current Canadian Armed Forces, and was related to medicine. And even some of the people in my unit, they were applying to different healthcare fields. So it got me into the mindset of where I'm kind of develop skills. And for physiotherapy, in interview, they asked me, like, what life experiences do you have that, would say that you would become like a good physiotherapist? And I, gave them a lot of the experience of working with people who had injured themselves, working towards goals, coming up with treatment plans for individuals, working in a setting where we're having discipline, studying like anatomy, physiology, working with patients. So it all kind of aligned with kind of the candidate the application that I was doing. So I think that really helped me, my military experiences, when I applied to that physiotherapy program. And it's the same thing for high school and also for university as well. It's not just the marks that the universities are looking for now. It's actually becoming like the life experiences and work experience that you have kind of that led you to choose that career path.
Great, you kind of answered my next question as well. I was going to talk about to build an effective resume, especially for the students who have very limited experience. So as you mentioned, it's not just about the marks you have; it's more about sharing your life experiences and having volunteer experiences on your resume.
Right.
Can you say more about? Can you spend more on that? How kind of like what kind of life experience, especially when they're in high school, they probably not have much exposure to the outside world, and they're gonna, like, let's say, trying to break into the physiotherapy or healthcare in general, or especially in their first year of the university or second year of the university.
Yeah, I think really there's 3 opportunities for students in high school to really start building their resume. And as you said, you don't have any work experiences to kind of put on the job, but I think some of them might have like various experience. But a lot of the healthcare, like a hospital is not going to be hiring like a high school student, or a private physiotherapy clinic will not be hiring a student. But I think it's becoming a volunteer and volunteering in those organizations, I think, is the first step that would open up the access to those fields, right? Because with my clinic, I'm a private physiotherapy clinic, and I have students who are applying to physiotherapy, kinesiologists who are applying to become a physiotherapist, or I also have like students that are going into medicine, and they're all volunteering at the clinic for various hours throughout the year, and they're using that experience in their interview on their resume. So I think volunteering in a healthcare organization, maybe similar to a field, like if you're in nursing, try to get into volunteering at the hospital, working in patient care. The cancer centers, they really look for volunteers to work with patients and, like direct patients in their care. On my floor, I work on a stroke unit where patients come in with a stroke. We have volunteers that help patients with, like various appointments and stuff like that as well. So in the hospital, we're looking for volunteers. Like I said, in my clinic, a lot of the clinics, they look for volunteers, especially for the summertime when maybe there's some staff shortages and a student can kind of help with some of the administrative tasks or, some of the day-to-day basic activities that don't involve exactly patient care. So I think a lot of these organizations do look for volunteers, and I think the hospital has like a stepwise process in terms of the application process, what experiences you want, and even some of the specific the units that would take volunteers, right? Whether it's like the emergency department or whether it's like a stroke unit or whether it's like cancer care. So I think becoming a volunteer, and I think now it's really changed a lot. I think a lot of high school students have like a certain number of volunteer hours that they require now. But I think if you're certainly looking at healthcare, then I think you have to approach these organizations and try to get some volunteer hours in from those organizations so that you can kind of use that on your resume. You can use that in your interview. You can use that even to decide if that's the field that you want to apply to. As we know, university, sometimes, like the first year or two, a lot of students don't have a specific field that they're going into. So at least this would give them an opportunity. Like for my clinic, a lot of the kinesiology students, they want to go into physiotherapy. So like that's where, and we hire kinesiologists at the clinic all the time. We hire students at the clinic all the time just to make sure that patients are being looked after. Like we have interviews that we could complete with patient satisfaction surveys. We have filing and stuff like that. So even as a student who doesn't have like a work experiences as a physiotherapist or like as an office administrator, a lot of these organizations are looking for volunteers. And I think like that's like one of the easiest step, I think, for like a high school student or a university student is to become a volunteer and get those experiences on there. And obviously something related to the field that you want, something related to healthcare. I think the second, what I had looked into was also like looking at organizations. Like for myself, like I'm involved with like the Kurdish Masjid, and on there, like you can have like a lot of the masjids have volunteer positions for various organizations. Like for the youth, you could be involved in like a youth group for the masjid. You could be involved in a sports program, like a seniors program for the masjid. There's a lot of these opportunities available even within kind of our Islamic community that could, put you in a position of either leadership, team building, community care, working with seniors. And these are all skills that most of the jobs in healthcare they're looking for. So they're looking for this skill set, working with clients, providing like a high level of care, making sure that you have that compassionate, empathetic approach towards working with a client, right? So I think in these organizations that they are looking for volunteers, and if you have any type of a leadership role in some of these organizations, then that also can help with your application and your skill set when you're applying to these positions for healthcare. I think the third opportunity also would be just basically looking at extracurricular activities within your own school, whether it's high school or whether it's university, being involved in like the student council, student body, again, a position of leadership or team building so that you can use kind of those skill sets in your application as well. So whether you're doing a volunteer position for like a healthcare facility, or whether you're actually doing a volunteer position for like a local organization, like a mosque or any organization that is working with the community, or also looking at extracurricular. I think those three opportunities for, especially for like a high school student who's maybe not looking for like paid employment, would be an absolute like essential requirement, right? To develop those skills and build that resume for that application.
Well, you summed up pretty well all that three different kind of opportunities that student would have, like getting into clinics or into your local organization like masjid, etc., and then your school, etc. So that's a great path for the students who are weighing this to look into. And I really like your point about empathy. That's really important, and to build empathy, especially when you're entering not only in healthcare but in general life, like you have to build empathy for others. So that's a very important point, and along with other leadership experience and opportunities. So that's great. Coming to our next question, Sad. Generally, you have been through, like, looking through various resumes and everything. What are the common misconceptions generally students do have or about resume, or the mistakes that generally they make
Mhm.
when making the resume?
I think like one of the mistakes is to like not having enough experience on the resume itself, right? So one, I think, is when you're doing the resume, you want it to be clear, you want it to be concise, you want to try to fit everything on one page. So like the organization that's looking at it can say like, how can this benefit my clinic or my healthcare facility? So for my clinic, if a student is applying, I'm looking at like what skills have they achieved, or what can they offer my patients at the organization, right? So they could be putting in skills like, I'm working with this organization and I help to achieve this with this organization, or I'm doing work with the seniors, and my hope is to kind of really help the seniors in this aspect of their life, right? So looking for somebody, I think, who can add value to that organization. And as a student, I think the biggest value you can add are maybe your skills in working with other public members, right? And making that organization see that, you know what, this is going to actually benefit my organization. And for most of the healthcare, the benefit usually is for like patient care, how the patients are going to benefit, whether it's medicine, whether it's physiotherapy, whether it's nursing. It's like, how are the patients going to benefit from any skill set you have? And if it's not even a job or something that you've put in there, but even like skills that you have, like saying like, I have like communication skills, or I have grandparents who went through a difficulty, and this is that what I used in my life experience to help my grandparents with this. So they're looking for somebody, again, who has empathy, who has caring. Like healthcare, we're working with generally the public, right? And we're trying to help the public in some aspect of their health, right? So I think that's the biggest skill set that you want to highlight is how are you going to benefit patients? What skills do you have that patients are going to benefit from if you or join that organization, either as a volunteer or as a paid member? So I think like the skill set for healthcare usually is giving like client-centered care, how the client is going to be benefiting from the skill set that you have. So I think in the resume, you have to emphasize those skills.
Perfect. So it's not just about what you have done in the past, like what your skill sets are, but it's more about the value and the value you bring to your organization and to the end users, which are basically the patients, and how
Yeah.
can you benefit them. So it's more about what value are you adding to where you're doing the internship, not just what you have done in the past. So that's a great point. Yeah.
Like I said, in healthcare, like we're basically working with the public, right? For most healthcare facilities, we're working with the public, or you're working towards like an individual. If you're not working directly with an individual, it's working towards their health, right? And so for most of the organization, the skill sets, they're usually the same, like involving yourself in communication, involving yourself with listening to what the client wants, involving yourself in developing a goal that incorporates the client's needs into their treatment plan. Also looking at providing a high level of care, like empathy, like I had mentioned before, towards a client. And I think clients really notice that in healthcare, that like the candidates who are actually interested in helping a person versus somebody who is maybe just doing it as a 9 to 5 job and then just leaving, right? I think those candidates really stand out when you're working with the public. Patients kind of see that this person has an invested interest in my health, and and a lot of those candidates are the ones that are really successful, or the clients can really attach themselves to. So I think like healthcare is like a broad field, but I think the skill set that you need in working with that public is the same. It's communication, it's empathy, it's like learning how to help an individual through challenging times, and also working like like for physiotherapy, I'm working at a unit where patients like who are in their maybe 40s or 50s were walking down the street one day, and the next day they had like a massive stroke. So it's like a huge life change for their environment. So the first 3 or 4 weeks, they're not going to be in the best mood. They're not going to be wanting to do the therapy. They're just dealing with kind of this loss of, like function, the fact that they were walking and might be in a wheelchair right now. So it's very like mentally challenging for them. So you want a candidate who can kind of help them overcome those challenges, right? And really work with the patient to, at that stage of their life, right? So that's something that I think that a lot of the skills that if you're looking at healthcare would, make you stand out from other candidates as well.
Definitely. So Asad, what are your final thoughts or any advice that you want our audience to walk away with? So coming to the end of the podcast, yes, I want to hear from you. Anything in general or specific you want to share?
So I think like the key is building your resume. If you're applying for a position, either at a facility or if you're applying to get into a program, whether it's from high school into a university program or from a university program into postgraduate, I think like the resume is your first building block to getting you in the door to that application. And I think in the resume, if it's related to healthcare field, your life experience have to be related to that, right? And like I had said before, for a student, the best opportunity is volunteering or getting involved with a healthcare facility, a local organization, or extracurricular school activities. And then from those volunteer experiences, highlight the 4 or 5 skills, how those skills will benefit a patient or how those skills will help the profession as a whole. And I think that for a high school student or a university student will help them stand out in the application process in applying for that position.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Asad. And I really hope the students and the audience who are listening to this episode would really help from the knowledge and experience you have shared with us. Really greatly appreciate that. So with this, we're going to end this episode and stay tuned for the next. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Walaikum Assalam.